Arsenal have just done something that very few people are talking about, and it might be the most important moment of their entire season. They have extended their lead at the top of the Premier League to 9 points. 9 points. With only 12 games remaining, Manchester City are now staring at what could be an impossible mountain to climb, and this victory over Sunderland, while not perfect, has put Arsenal in a commanding position that changes everything about this title race. Let me be very clear about what just happened at the Emirates Stadium. This was not just another 3 points. This was a statement of intent, a demonstration of squad depth, and a glimpse into why Arsenal are now the overwhelming favourites to lift the Premier League trophy. But it was also a match that exposed some serious vulnerabilities that Mikel Arteta needs to address immediately if they are going to get over the line. The final score was 3-0 to Arsenal. Martin Zubamendi opened the scoring in the first half with an absolutely stunning strike from distance. Then Havertz and Gyökeres came off the bench and changed the game completely, scoring twice in the second half, including one in stoppage time. On paper, it looks comfortable. On paper, it looks like Arsenal cruised to victory. But anyone who watched that match knows the truth. This was far from comfortable, and there were moments when Sunderland made Arsenal look genuinely uncertain. Here is what was really at stake. If Arsenal had dropped points in this match, the door would have swung wide open for Manchester City. The psychological shift would have been massive. City would have smelled blood. They would have seen weakness, and with their experience in title races, with their ability to go on those devastating winning runs, Arsenal could not afford to give them any hope whatsoever. A draw or a loss here would have cut the lead to 7 or even 5 points, and suddenly this title race would have been back on in a very real way. But Arsenal got the job done. They found a way to win even when they were not at their best. And that is exactly what champions do. That is the mark of a team that has learned from previous failures, from previous collapses, from seasons where they let it slip away. If you want deeper analysis on stories like this, if you want to understand the tactical decisions and the psychological battles that define these crucial matches, hit that subscribe button right now. This is the kind of detailed breakdown you need to truly understand what is happening at Arsenal Football Club. Now let me take you through what actually happened in this match, because the story is far more complex than the scoreline suggests. Arsenal started this game as overwhelming favourites. They were at home, they were top of the table, they were facing a Sunderland side that, while competitive, were never expected to come to the Emirates and get a result. But those opening exchanges were cagey. Arsenal struggled to get going in attack. They looked nervous, they looked like a team feeling the weight of expectation, the pressure of being 9 points clear, the fear of making a mistake that could change everything. Sunderland were not afraid. They came to the Emirates with a clear game plan, and for large parts of the first half, they executed it brilliantly. They pressed high, they disrupted Arsenal's rhythm. They made life incredibly difficult for the home side. And this is where we start to see the first major issue that emerged from this match. William Saliba had an afternoon to forget. This is a player who has been absolutely exceptional for Arsenal this season. Solid, composed, dominant in the air, reading the game perfectly, but against Sunderland, something was very wrong. Brian Brobby, the Sunderland striker, terrorised him. Every time Brobby was in Saliba's vicinity, you could see the anxiety. You could see the uncertainty. This is not the William Saliba that Arsenal fans have become accustomed to seeing. Saliba picked up a yellow card after fouling Habib Diarra, and from that moment on, he looked shaky. He looked nervous. He looked like a player who desperately needed to be taken off, to be given a rest, to reset his mental state. The article I analysed rated him at just 4 out of 10. 4 out of 10 for a player who is normally one of Arsenal's most reliable performers. That is genuinely concerning. The suggestion is clear. Saliba needs a rest. He has played an enormous amount of football this season. He has been a constant in Arsenal's defence, rarely missing a game, always being asked to perform at the highest level. But even the best players need recovery time. Even the most mentally strong players can hit a wall. And what we saw against Sunderland was a player who has hit that wall. If Arteta does not rotate Saliba soon, if he does not give him a game off to recover physically and mentally, then Arsenal could be in serious trouble. Because if Saliba is not at his best in the crucial games that are coming up, if he is making the kind of mistakes we saw against Sunderland when they faced tougher opposition, then that 9-point lead could evaporate very quickly. But Saliba was not the only defensive player who struggled. Riccardo Calafiori also had a strange afternoon. He started the game decently enough, but then made a few uncharacteristic defensive mistakes. Thankfully for Arsenal, Sunderland were not clinical enough to punish those errors. But against better teams, against Manchester City or Liverpool or Chelsea, those mistakes would be goals. Those mistakes would be the difference between winning and losing. The concerning thing is that both Saliba and Calafiori looked uncertain at the same time. That is not a coincidence. That suggests a wider issue, perhaps fatigue across the entire defensive unit, perhaps a lack of rotation that is starting to catch up with them. Now, let me talk about Gabriel Jesus, because his performance highlighted another issue that Arsenal need to address urgently. Jesus started this match instead of Havertz and Gyökeres. Arteta clearly wanted to rotate his squad, to give Gyökeres a rest, to keep him fresh for the crucial games ahead. And on paper, that makes sense. Jesus is an experienced player. He knows the Premier League. He has won titles with Manchester City. He should be capable of leading the line effectively. But what actually happened was deeply frustrating. Jesus was caught offside three times in the space of an hour. That is not acceptable for a player of his experience and quality. These were not marginal offsides. These were not tight calls where VAR had to draw lines for 5 minutes. These were clear offsides that showed a fundamental problem with his positioning and his timing. The most frustrating moment came when Jesus won a penalty, but he was flagged offside. If he had timed his run correctly, Arsenal would have had a penalty. They would have had the chance to go 2-0 up. But instead, the flag went up and the opportunity was gone. The statistics are damning. Jesus had more offsides in 1 hour against Sunderland than Havertz and Gyökeres has recorded in the entire season. Let that sink in. The player who is supposed to be the backup, the experienced option, the reliable alternative, had more offsides in 60 minutes than the first-choice striker has had in months of football. This tells us something very important about the hierarchy at Arsenal. Jesus is not good enough to be the starting striker for a team that wants to win the Premier League. He can be useful across the front line, he can contribute in certain situations, but if Arsenal need him to step in and lead the line for multiple games, they are in trouble. The good news is that Arsenal have Havertz and Gyökeres, and what we saw when he came on as a substitute was exactly why Arsenal spent big money to bring him to the club in the summer. Gyökeres entered the match in the second half, replacing Jesus, and within 6 minutes he had scored. 6 minutes. That is the impact of a genuine elite striker. That is what happens when you have someone who knows where to be, who times their runs perfectly, who has that killer instinct in front of goal. The goal itself was described as ferocious. Gyökeres hit it with power, with precision, with absolute confidence. And suddenly the anxiety that had been building throughout the match evaporated. Arsenal were 2-0 up. The game was effectively over. Sunderland had given everything they had and now they were broken. But Gyökeres was not finished. In stoppage time, he scored again. This time, it was a counter-attack. Gabriel Martinelli, who had come on as a substitute, ran the length of the pitch to provide the assist, and Gyökeres finished clinically to make it 3-0. That is now goals in back-to-back Premier League games for the Swedish striker. He is finding his rhythm. He is showing exactly why Arsenal was so determined to sign him. And crucially, he is developing a partnership with Kai Havertz that looks genuinely dangerous. Let me talk about Havertz for a moment, because his performance in this match was another positive sign for Arsenal. Havertz played in the number 10 role, operating just behind Jesus initially, and then linking up with Gyökeres when the Swede came on. And it was Havertz who set up Gyökeres for his first goal. The German has playmaking qualities that put him on the same wavelength as Gyökeres. They understand each other's movement, they know where each other is going to be, and that is something that cannot be coached. That is chemistry. Havertz came very close to scoring himself in the first half, hitting a curling shot from outside the box that went just wide. He was rated at 7 out of 10 for his performance, and the suggestion is that he may have just made the number 10 spot his own for the remainder of the season. This is significant because it gives Arteta another dimension in attack. If Havertz can continue to play at this level, if he can continue to create chances and link up with Gyökeres effectively, then Arsenal have multiple ways to hurt teams. They are not reliant on one player. They are not predictable, and that makes them extremely difficult to defend against. But the real star of the show was Martin Zubamendi. This is a player who Arsenal signed to add quality and depth to their midfield, and he is delivering exactly what was expected of him. Zubamendi controlled the midfield really well throughout the match. He dictated the tempo, he broke up Sunderland attacks. He kept Arsenal ticking over when they were struggling to create chances. But his standout moment was the goal. The goal was described as an absolute stunner. Zubamendi hit it from distance, similar to a Declan Rice effort that had come close earlier in the match. The ball curled beautifully, leaving the Sunderland goalkeeper with no chance. It was a moment of genuine quality, the kind of goal that can change a match, that can lift a team when they are struggling. Zubamendi was rated at 9 out of 10. He was named man of the match. And his tribute to Mikel Merino after scoring was described as lovely, showing the kind of character and personality that Arsenal fans are quickly falling in love with. This is what Arsenal needed from their summer signings. They needed players who could come in and make an immediate impact. They needed quality, they needed depth, and in Zubamendi and Gyökeres, they have found exactly that. Declan Rice also deserves significant credit for his performance. He was rated at 8 out of 10, and the assessment was that nobody can remember the last time he produced a bad performance for Arsenal. Rice was the driving force at times. He was unlucky not to score himself. And he continues to be one of the most consistent players in the entire Premier League. This is the foundation that Arsenal are building on. Rice in midfield, controlling games, driving forward, protecting the defence. Zubamendi alongside him, adding creativity and quality. And then Havertz and Gyökeres in attack, creating and scoring goals. Leandro Trossard also had an excellent game. He was rated at 8 out of 10 and described as Arsenal's most underrated player this season. Trossard was fantastic. He got on the ball a lot in the first half. He was a constant threat, and he got the assist for Zubamendi's goal. But there was a concerning moment late in the match when Trossard limped off. The hope is that it is nothing too serious, because Arsenal cannot afford to lose him at this stage of the season. He has been crucial to their success, providing goals and assists, working tirelessly and offering versatility across the front line. Gabriel Martinelli also impressed after coming on as a substitute. His work rate was described as fantastic again. He ran the length of the pitch to provide the assist for Gyökeres' second goal. This is the kind of commitment and desire that Arsenal need from every player if they are going to win the title. Eberechi Eze came on after Arsenal's second goal and looked lively. He could not produce the magic he is capable of, but he was a lot more involved than he has been recently. That is a positive sign, because Arsenal need all their attacking players firing if they are going to maintain this lead. Now, let me put this all into context. Arsenal are 9 points clear at the top of the Premier League with 12 games to go. This is a massive advantage. This is the kind of lead that should be unassailable. But we have seen Arsenal collapse before. We have seen them throw away strong positions. And that is why this match was so important. Arsenal needed to show that they could win, even when they were not at their best. They needed to show that they have the squad depth to rotate players and still get results. They needed to show that they have the mental strength to handle the pressure of being favourites. And for the most part, they did exactly that. Yes, there were issues. Yes, Saliba and Calafiori struggled. Yes, Jesus was frustrating, but they still won 3-0. They still extended their lead. They still put the pressure firmly back on Manchester City. All eyes are now on City. They have to respond. They have to beat Liverpool. They have to go on a perfect run and hope that Arsenal slip up multiple times, because the reality is that Arsenal are now in complete control of this title race. But Arteta cannot afford to be complacent. He cannot assume that this lead is safe. He needs to address the defensive issues immediately. He needs to give Saliba a rest. He needs to rotate his squad carefully. And he needs to make sure that his players stay focused and hungry for every single point. The Gabriel Jesus situation also needs attention. If Gyökeres gets injured, if he needs a rest, Arsenal cannot rely on Jesus to lead the line for multiple games. They need to find another option. They need to either bring someone in or adjust their system to accommodate Jesus' limitations. But overall, this was a positive afternoon for Arsenal. They got the job done. They showed character. They showed quality. And most importantly, they showed that they have the squad depth to compete on multiple fronts. The connection between Havertz and Gyökeres is exciting. If that partnership continues to develop, if they keep creating chances for each other, then Arsenal are going to be extremely difficult to stop. Add in the quality of Zubamendi, the consistency of Rice, the threat of Trossard and Martinelli, and you have an attacking unit that can hurt any team in the league. The title race is not over yet. There are still 12 games to play. There will be more twists and turns. There will be injuries and suspensions and unexpected results. But Arsenal are now in the driving seat. They control their own destiny. And if they can maintain this level of performance, if they can address the defensive issues, if they can keep their key players fit, then they are going to win the Premier League. This victory over Sunderland might not have been perfect, but it was exactly what Arsenal needed. 3 points, a 9-point lead, and a demonstration that they have the quality and the depth to handle the pressure. The next few weeks will tell us everything we need to know about whether this Arsenal team can finally get over the line and deliver the title that their fans have been waiting for.